Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this can be my review for Mad Men Season 7, Episode 5, The Runaways. And this episode was amazing. I thought it was a fantastic episode, and I really love this episode. I actually thought it was better than last week's. So it wasn't that last week was bad. It was just like, last week was not as good. In my opinion, this was the strongest episode of the season, because there was a lot going on this episode. We saw almost every character that we've seen in this episode, which I really did enjoy. The only character I don't think we saw was Joan, but I don't really care about Joan, so, yeah, but, let's just get to this review. We had 3 plots in this episode. The first plot had to do with Dawn, the second plot had to do with Betty and Sally, and the third plot had to do with Stan. So, let's get to Dawn first. So, we see Dawn and Peggy. They're coming into Sterling Cooper in an elevator. It's a Friday, and Peggy is asking Dawn what his weekend plans are. And he says he has no plans for this weekend, and he says he is going to California the next weekend. So, she tells him that she's glad to have him on the team working on Handy Rap, and she leaves the elevator, and Peggy and Dawn see Stan yelling at the new computer, "Stop humming, you're not happy." Basically, they see that Stan's yelling at it like a human. We'll get to Stan in a second, but the thing I like about the scene is we're seeing that Peggy and Dawn, they're actually working really well together, surprisingly, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting them to not work well together, but I think Dawn's really taking Freddy's advice, because, you know, Freddy said, just do what Peggy says, and then you'll get your position back. I think that's what Dawn's trying to do. He's trying to take Freddy's advice, and, definitely you can see that in this scene. So that was definitely very interesting. So, Dawn receives this call from Stephanie. Now, let me just say that when Stephanie was introduced in the other episodes, I did not watch those episodes, so I didn't know who Stephanie was. All I know is that she was very different. She was very different in those episodes than she was now. She is now a hippie. She is in LA. She's pregnant, and she has run out of money. So, obviously, she's in very bad shape. Kind of like how Margaret was in the last episode with Roger. You know, Margaret was in bad shape as well. Kind of like how Stephanie's in bad shape. Stephanie's in even worse bad shape, though, because of, you know, she's out of money, she has nowhere to go, and she's pregnant. It's not like she has someone watching her child, because she's pregnant right now, so it's not good, obviously. Dawn tells her, he gives her directions to go to see Megan in Laurel Canyon, and he says he wants to see her, and she says thank you. So, Dawn then calls Megan, and, you know, Megan has her friend Amy over, and, Dawn tells Megan about Stephanie, and Megan offers to cancel the party she's having for her acting class on Saturday. Dawn says not to, and says he will be at her place by 10 o'clock that night. Megan says she's glad she will get to see Dawn. And what I like about this scene is, again, we're seeing that Dawn and Megan, they're starting to reconnect. They really are. And you know what? I wasn't thinking it was going to work out for them. You know, from that big fight in the 3rd episode, I did not think they had any chance of getting back together. I thought they were basically done. But this episode, that's not the case. They seem like they're actually back on track, and I like that because I think they're a good couple overall. And I enjoy them as a couple. I like seeing them, so definitely that was a very good scene. So, the next thing we see is that the creative team is making fun of Lou's cartoon, and Dawn comes in and takes the folder that contains the strips that they note that Dawn is still part of the faculty, and, so then Stephanie arrives at Megan's place, and Megan offers her food, you know, offers to give her a bath, and Stephanie asks for meat since she's been dreaming about it, and Megan sends her to the bedroom and tells her to make herself at home while Megan cooks. So, Megan's just trying to make herself at home, you know, make her at home, telling her, you know, here, you can stay here, you can make yourself at home, and I thought that was definitely a very good scene. So, during a meeting in Lou's office, Lou asks Dawn to throw out the first pitch. Dawn asks if Stan, who will be assisting him, wants to stay where he's seated or move next to Dawn. Lou snipes at Stan, asks, "Can you be smug from over there?" The new guy apologizes. Peggy asks what's going on. Lou calls the creative team a bunch of flag-burning snots. And basically, Lou is very angry at Stan, but he's also very angry at Dawn. You see that him and Dawn are not getting along very well at all, because Dawn brings his work to Lou. He's in his coat and hat, and Lou tells him he's not going anywhere, and that the coat and briefcase are a rookie move, and he says, "I'm going to tuck you in tonight. I'd let you go, Lou." And then Lou replies, basically saying that, basically saying, I'm not taking management advice from Don Draper. Basically saying, I don't give a shit what you have to say. You mean nothing to me. And basically, all you are is the guy that I'm filling in for. And I mean, that is just that's basically what he's saying. Even though he didn't say those words specifically, that is basically what he's saying to Don, is that I don't give a single shit about you. That's what he's saying. And you know what? That definitely is really big, because I really like this Don-Lou conflict. Definitely, I think, Don is definitely going to get his position back, because at this point, I think we're supposed to hate Lou. I hate Lou. I have hated Lou from the beginning. I've never liked him as a character. And now I really hate him, because he just insulted Don, and that's not cool. No one insults Don Draper. Nobody insults him. So Don calls Megan to tell her he won't be able to make it to LA until the next morning, and Megan tells Stephanie, and the two chat about the father of Stephanie's child, who her boyfriend is a musician, but he's currently in jail for selling marijuana, which again is very, very similar to Margaret last week when her when her husband was in jail. It turns out that Stephanie can't eat the steak. Stephanie spots Anna's ring on Megan's finger and tells her she's happy it is in the family, and she asks Megan about having children. And Megan replies that Dawn's children are plenty, and Stephanie's boyfriend doesn't know about the baby, and when Megan cautions Stephanie about Dawn's likely disapproval of the disorganization of Stephanie's plans, Stephanie says, I know all his secrets. Megan is discomforted by this and seemingly also by Stephanie's beauty, and hints that Stephanie should leave by saying, will $1,000 get you far enough? This comes with no strings. And Stephanie counters by saying nothing has ever happened between us. Definitely you can see that Megan is kind of scared of Stephanie, because she really doesn't know. She's just kind of scared of Stephanie, so yeah. So it definitely is pretty big there. And, yeah, so then what happens is Dawn enters Megan's place to see Amy doing dishes. Megan enters, and Amy excuses herself. Megan explains to Dawn that Stephanie left. He is displeased. He should have called her. He says, you should have called me, at least let me talk to her. Amy and Megan leave to do some grocery shopping, and when Amy asks if Dawn wants him to go to get anything in particular, and Megan says, I know what he likes. So, again, Dawn's kind of upset that he did not get to talk to Stephanie, because he wanted to talk to Stephanie, and Megan talked to Stephanie, so he's kind of upset about that. So the phone rings at Megan's, and Amy answers. She and Megan are dressed for the party, and the party has started. Megan at Megan's, and Amy's offers Dawn a joint, and he declines. People with guitars and banjos and drums start to play an old jazz song, and Megan turns off the radio and dances with one of her guests. Dawn looks uncomfortable. Megan notices this, hands off her dance partner to someone else, and then Harry Crane arrives at the party with someone named Miranda, and Dawn asks Henry to go get a drink with him. Elsewhere, Harry dumps Miranda on Megan and leaves with Dawn. And that was a pretty big thing. I wasn't expecting that to happen at all. That was something really big. So Dawn is in a bar having a drink with Harry. Harry tells Dawn that he respects his intellect. And he says, guys like us, we've got to look out for each other. I'm going to make sure you're still important. And he tells Dawn to move to LA to be with Megan to replace Ted Cow, who is useless and a broken man, and he tells Dawn about the final solution. So, evidently, Cutler and Lou are pursuing an account with Commander Cigarettes. They have an upcoming meeting with Philip Morris, and Harry has put together the media strategy. I hope you know how much I appreciate this, Dawn says. So then Dawn comes home to Megan and Amy, and we get probably just, this scene is just, this was a pretty big, I was not expecting this to happen. They're trying to get Dawn to smoke a joint, and they're probably high at this point, because I don't think if Megan and Amy were not high, they wouldn't ask him to do this. I think they're probably high at this point. Amy says, you know what make you feel better? Drugs. And Dawn says he's tired and goes to bed, and Megan and Amy go join him in bed, because, again, they're high, so they're clearly just, they're high, probably. Amy says, I'm supposed to tuck you in. Megan says, it's the best place to be right now, Dawn. And Dawn says, I don't want anything. And they end up in a threesome. Yeah, I'm serious. They had a threesome scene on Mad Men. And you know what? I understand why they did that. You know, it was just kind of show the side effects of drugs, and that was definitely an interesting scene. I wasn't expecting there to be a threesome on this show ever, but that was a pretty big thing that they had a threesome. I mean, that was pretty big. Basically, even though Megan took the lead, it still was a threesome. It was. The next meeting, Don gets up, looks for coffee. Megan helps him. They kiss. The phone rings, and Stephanie calls. Megan slams drawers, clinks croaky as Dawn asks Stephanie where she is. Stephanie says, I didn't want to break my word, and when Dawn counters that Stephanie promised to wait for him at Megan's, Stephanie explains that she didn't want to break her word to Anna Draper, to whom she made a promise not to disrupt Dawn's life. And basically Dawn says, call me when the baby comes, you have my number. And I like that, because the thing is, Dawn says, you know, when the baby comes, I'm going to be there for you, and I'm going to help you get through this. And I think that's good that Dawn said that. After Dawn hangs up the phone, he tells Megan that Harry told him something that Dawn wasn't supposed to know, and that Dawn needs to leave for New York. And Megan says, you're still coming back next weekend. Dawn says, yes. Amy emerges from the bedroom, heads out to the door, and she says, great party, I'm going to shower, Dawn says. And basically what happens next is Dawn arrives at a secret meeting in a private room that Lou and Jim are having with Philip Morris. He sits down and introduces himself. You know, he was not supposed to know about this. He wasn't supposed to know, and he's there now. So he basically found out something he wasn't supposed to know about. He shakes hands with everyone, and he announces that if you were to give us a shot, I'm prepared to leave the agency. That's what he says. He says, I'm prepared to leave the agency. And Jim says that will save them the trouble. But Don continues. He talks about the experience with tobacco accounts. He brings up American Tobacco, Philip Morris' main competition, and asks what they would think if Philip Morris were to hire Don and make him recant and work for them. The Philip Morris men seem very skeptical, and Don holds a cab door open for Lou and Jim as they leave the Alquani, and Lou says, you're incredible, and Don says, thank you. So Lou and Jim get in the cab, and as Don closes the door, Jim asks, you think this is going to save you, don't you? So I don't know what that's foreshadowing at, but you can definitely see there's a lot of tension between Lou and Don. But Don's plot I thought was definitely really great in this episode. However, my favorite plot in this episode was probably Betty's. I thought Betty's plot was probably the strongest in my opinion. And I really like Betty and Sally's plot. I thought it was definitely very well done the way they did that whole thing. So let's go to Betty. Henry and Betty, they turn on at the red round robin. They talk to their guests who are complaining about vandalized streetlights. Betty connects young people's lack of prospect for authority to their protests against Vietnam. Harry dismisses Betty's opinion. You know, that was a big thing going on this time, the Vietnam War and everything. That was a very big thing going on this time period. So I am happy that they addressed that, because, you know, they had to address that. That was definitely a big thing. And basically, Betty feels demeaned, and she goes to check on the sterno, and Henry returns home. Betty's in bed. She left the round robin with a headache. She is angry that he had to go stag to several neighbors' home, and she apologized, but Henry chastises her for speaking her mind on the Vietnam issue. She counters that he never told her what she was supposed to say. He says, leave the thinking to me. Betty then answers the phone, and she says, what? And then is she okay? We don't know what it's about, but it turns out it's about Sally. Sally has a broken eye. She has a black eye, possibly a broken nose from sword fighting with golf clubs. And Betty is livid at this. She's very upset that, you know, Sally did this to herself. And she said, that's your face, young lady. And basically, Sally talks back saying, yes, that's right, it is my face. And Henry is basically saying, you know, trying to break up the fight. And we get a very good scene with Sally. I really like where this went. And Sally asks where Betty would be without the and basically, Sally says, I know why you're so worried, because you have the perfect nose, and you want me to keep that perfect nose, and basically, she enables her to get a husband. Betty counters, it was a perfect nose, and I gave it to you. She orders Sally upstairs for the night, and again, you can see there's a lot of tension between Sally and Betty. You can definitely see that. So I enjoyed that scene overall. Sally's in bed, and Bobby comes into the room and asks if Henry and Betty will be getting a divorce. He says he has a stomachache all the time, and Sally says she's going to leave that night and hitchhike back to school, but Bobby cannot come with her because he's too little, and they will never let him go. So she's going to basically run away, and yeah, so she's going to run away. So Betty's sitting in the kitchen. Henry walks in and says, let's go. He wants to go sit in the living room, not in the kitchen, like the help. And Betty says she's comfortable sitting where she is. and she does not appreciate Henry coming in telling her to get up and follow him where he wants to go. She's also still angry about the way he dismissed her opinion at the party. She says, I'm not stupid, I speak Italian, and guess what, I think all by myself. Henry's still dismissive and asks if she's smart. Why doesn't she run for office? She says she doesn't know what she's going to do, but that's a good idea. So, we can definitely see that Betty is kind of feeling left out, and I mean, that's a big thing. In that time period, I mean, that definitely is a big thing. So yeah, I mean, that definitely is a very big thing in that time period, and I'm glad they kind of touched upon that. So, yeah, that was Betty's plot. Let's go to probably the most interesting plot of this episode was Stan. Stan is a wreck. Okay, I'm just going to say that. Stan is a train wreck. Seriously, he really is. Stan is basically getting mad at a computer. He's talking to a computer like it's a human, and seriously, just, he needs to... Stan is really just, he's destroying his life. He really is. Sorry, I've just got a call on Skype. I'm sorry, guys. Basically, they are all in front of the creative staff. Stan gives Lou's comic into Shirley. She cautions, no one has seen this. They all reply, Scout's honor. And what happens then is the creative team is making fun of Lou's cartoon. I already talked about that, but basically, Stan and the newest creative team members are in the men's room at the urinals, repeating what is clearly a previous joke. The new guy says, I want her. Stan says, you can't have her. The new guy says, why? Stan replies, because Scout's on her, and Lou emerges from a stall, having overheard their mockery. He washes and wipes his hands and walks out without a word. Really, as I said, he is literally just destroying himself. So, yeah, it definitely is interesting here. Basically, what happens next is, where was it? Stan is walking in his office. He's bothered by the hum of a computer. He puts Kleenex in his ears. He walks out of the office, spots Jim Cutler and Lou talking to one another in the computer room. And Stan is very suspicious and hides before they see him. So, there's a knock on Peggy's door, and it's Stan. He tells her he witnessed Lou and Jim having a secret meeting in a computer room, and she says they're homos. The computer makes men do unnatural things. He says he's been affected too, and found himself attracted to Stan. Julio enters after Peggy explains who Julio is. Stan asks if he can work at Peggy's. He sets up at Peggy's desk as Julio and Peggy sit on the couch, presumably watching TV. So Peggy awakes to see Stan looming over her on the couch. Julio is left. Stan says that there is pressure in his head because of the hum of the computer in the office. He said the computer is in place to turn every homosexual. He announces that he wants to have sex with Peggy because it's building up. And Peggy yells at him, it's just a computer. And Stan leaves, because it's true. He's being way too... I mean, as I said, Stan is a wreck in this episode. He really is, and... Seriously, it is just a computer. He needs to get over it. It's crazy with Stan in this episode. So the last thing we see is that Stan walks into Peggy's room, and he announces, I'm myself again. He's also trying to, apologize to Peggy. He tells Peggy he has feelings for her. His next announcement is a bit more anatomic. I had to find a release. I found an outlet. This is really weird. He hands her a small white box. She opens it, and it's, it's his nipple, and he says it's the valve. He cut it off himself to let the pressure out. And he says, anyway, I'm grateful, so I wanted to show you. And she leaves. And she's very shaken at this. She's very scared at this point. She picks up a telephone from a secretary's desk, and she's calling for help. So, then he is wheeled out of Sterling Cooper on a stretcher, and he says, get out while you can. And Peggy is red-eyed, looks at the computer accusingly. So, definitely this computer has messed Stan up. I mean, seriously, it has totally messed Stan up, and Stan was just a nutcase this episode. He really was. But that was the episode, and overall, I thought this was a fantastic episode. Now, as I said, I don't think it was the best of the season. It definitely was not the best of the season, but I still I thought that it still was a very good episode, even though it wasn't the best of the season. It still was a very good episode. A couple of things I want to know, Dawn and Megan, Dawn, what is going to happen between Dawn and Lou? There's a lot of tension between them. Do you think that Dawn will get his position back? I do think he will. As far as Stan, what's going to happen with Stan? I think he's going to a mental asylum. He's clearly going insane. What is really going on with Stan? I feel like there's something more going on. My favorite plot in this episode, as I said, was Sally's. Sally's going to run away. Where is Sally going to? We don't really know. And also Betty. Will Betty actually run for, the council or something? Henry said she should do is she gonna listen to him, actually? And also, Henry and Betty, you can definitely tell there's a lot of tension between them. But that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. And also Stephanie. We're gonna see Stephanie again. I think we will. That's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of 24. So see you then. Bye.